The storm inside Marcus Carter's chest began long before he stepped into the rooftop restaurant overlooking the rolling skyline of Charlotte, North Carolina. It intensified the moment he saw her Hannah sitting across the table he had reserved. Weeks ago, her posture graceful, her eyes carrying a mixture of hope and hesitation. He had imagined this dinner 100 different ways, but all the imagined versions had one thing in common. None felt as painfully real as the silence settling between them now. And as the sun dipped behind the glass railing, painting the sky in shades of gold and bruised purple, Marcus felt the weight of their shared history press down like a hand closing around his lungs. If you believe in kindness, in redemption, in second chances that arrive when least expected, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. It truly supports the channel and helps these stories reach more hearts. The moment that changed everything, however, came from a place neither of them could have predicted. It arrived wearing a pink dress, a white bow, and a smile brighter than the Carolina sun. But before that moment, there was only discomfort. Marcus had invited Hannah here as a final attempt, not necessarily to rekindle what they once had, but to mend the fractures neither of them had fully acknowledged. Their marriage had ended 2 years earlier, not with screaming or hatred, but with exhaustion. Life had worn them down with its relentless grind, financial stress, conflicting schedules, quiet misunderstanding. That grew into loud silences, and eventually a kind of emotional numbness they didn't know how to thaw. They parted ways peacefully, signing the papers with trembling hands and avoiding eye contact because looking too close might reveal the truth. Neither wanted to confront that they still cared, but didn't know how to fix the damage. Tonight, Marcus wanted to try. Yet as he sat there in a light blue blazer, hands clasped tightly under the table, he realized everything felt too fragile. There was too much unsaid, too many questions, too many fears. Hannah, in her soft cream blouse and golden skirt, looked like a memory resurrected, familiar, beautiful, heartbreaking. She stared down at the empty plate, unsure of how to begin, unsure of what he expected from her. The waiter came and went. Glasses of water remained untouched. The breeze brushed past them with a hint of autumn, and in the cruel space between them, the past lingered. Across the restaurant, a small family took their seats, a young father, a quiet mother, and a girl of about 6 or 7 who walked with a bounce in her step, her pink dress swirling around her like a delighted cloud. She looked around with open curiosity, her eyes scanning every table until they landed on Hannah. And just like that, the child froze. Marcus noticed her first. Her expression flickered, as though she had recognized something precious. She let go of her father's hand, took a few steps closer to her own family's table, but continued staring across the room. When their eyes met, Hannah offered a polite smile, though her chest tightened with the awkwardness of the moment. She didn't know the girl. She didn't know why the child seemed fascinated by her, but something in that little face, something innocent and bright, made her sit a little straighter. As the minutes passed, the tension at Marcus and Hannah's table grew heavier. Marcus finally tried to speak, stumbling over his words as he attempted to explain why he had asked her to dinner. He wanted to apologize for the ways he had failed her, how he wished he'd been braver, more patient, more present, but every sentence fell flat, tangled in unresolved feelings. Hannah's hands trembled slightly as she listened, emotions stirring beneath her calm exterior. She longed to tell him she wasn't blameless either, that she too had drifted, had shut him out, had allowed pride to build walls where vulnerability should have lived. But the words stuck in her throat. Just when the air became too thick to breathe, the little girl in the pink dress did something unexpected. She left her parents' table entirely and marched right toward theirs, her small shoes tapping decisively against the wooden floor. Marcus and Hannah looked up, both startled, as the child stopped directly beside their table, her smile wide and genuine. And then, with absolute innocence, she pointed straight at Hannah. Her parents hurried after her, apologizing softly, but the little girl didn't seem embarrassed. She giggled, her eyes sparkling, and she said something quietly to her mother, something Marcus and Hannah couldn't quite hear. But whatever it was, it made the woman's eyes fill with tears. The mother knelt beside her daughter, smoothing her hair gently, before turning toward Hannah with a warm, emotional expression. She explained softly that her daughter had recently lost her teacher, the woman who had been her comfort, her encouragement, her safe place. The girl had struggled for weeks with the absence of someone she trusted deeply. For the first time since then, she saw a woman who looked like her former teacher, who radiated the same gentle presence she missed so much. The resemblance made her smile, really smile, for the first time in months. Hannah's breath caught. She felt something bloom within her chest, a mixture of surprise and tenderness. She had come here feeling uncertain and disconnected from herself. But this small child saw something in her, something warm, something nurturing, something she herself had forgotten existed. The little girl reached out, not to touch, but to offer a tiny, hopeful wave, and Hannah, feeling her heart melt, returned the gesture. It lasted only a moment, but moments like that have the power to break the hardest emotional walls. As the family guided their daughter back to their table, Marcus looked at Hannah with new eyes. There was softness, there's something rekindled, something awakened, and Hannah looked back at him, her expression gentler, more open, as if the child's innocent gesture had reminded her of the woman she used to be, the woman Marcus had once fallen in love with. The awkwardness didn't disappear completely, but it shifted. The atmosphere calmed. The silence between them no longer felt like an empty space, it felt like a beginning. Marcus reached for his glass, his hand trembling slightly, but this time Hannah noticed. She placed her hand over his, steadying it in a way she hadn't done in years. He felt the warmth of her touch, and she felt the warmth of his gratitude. They talked slowly, honestly, with the kind of vulnerability that had been missing for far too long. They shared regrets, memories, hopes they thought no longer existed. And as the evening deepened, so did their connection. It wasn't about rekindling romance or rewinding time, it was about recognition, about forgiveness, about rediscovering the simple truth that they could still be kind to each other, still care in ways that mattered. If this story touches your heart, please don't forget to like the video, share it with someone who might need it today, and subscribe for more stories that remind us all of the gentle power of humanity. Before the story ends, please comment below. What part of this moment moved you the most? By the time Marcus and Hannah left the restaurant, the night sky had settled peacefully above them. The painful silence was gone, replaced by a quiet understanding. They didn't know what the future held, but they knew this. Something had shifted, something had healed, and sometimes healing doesn't arrive in grand gestures, it arrives in the form of a little girl in a pink dress, pointing with radiant innocence at a woman she believed carried kindness in her smile. And in that small, unexpected moment, two hearts that had once broken found the courage to soften again.